Till now we have studied about the pre-fertilization events that are involved in the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So second event that comes is the fertilization event. But before understanding the fertilization event, it is necessary to understand that how the transfer of pollen occurs to the carpel in order to undergo the fertilization event. So it is pollination process with the help of which the transfer of pollen from anther to stigma of the carpel occurs. Thus, pollination is a process which helps in transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma of the carpel. In order to carry out the fertilization event. Now, the pollination process can be of two types, either self-pollination or cross-pollination. Self-pollination is the process in which the transfer of pollen from the anther of a flower to the stigma of a carpel of the same flower occurs. Thus it is termed as self-pollination. On the contrary, in cross-pollination, the transfer of anther from one flower So let us understand each of the types in. So let us first of all begin with the first type, that is self-pollination. As said, self-pollination is a type of pollination in which transfer of pollen from an anther of a stigma that is stigma of the same flower that is of the same plant. Occurs, then the process is known as self-pollination. This type of process of self-pollination generally occurs in bisexual flowers since both the male and female gametes are present within the same flower, and so the transfer of pollen becomes easy. However, in few exceptions, this process also occurs in unisexual flowers. But of the same plant. Depending on this nature, self-pollination can also be further of two types. That is, first, autogamy, and second, ketonogamy. As it can be seen from the figure, which depicts both the autogamy and ketonogamy, that is the process of self-pollination within the plant. The autogamy, as it can be seen, is a type of self-pollination which occurs within the same flower of the same plant. On the contrary, ketonogamy is also a type of self-pollination in which the transfer of pollen occurs from one flower to the other flower but of the same plant. Thus, autogamy is a type of self-pollination in which the transfer of pollen occurs within the same flower of the same plant. Thus, autogamy in layman words means pollination of a flower by its own pollen. Since the pollination process occurs within the same flower, so it can be said as pollination of flowers by the pollens of its own. Such a type of self-pollination generally occurs in members of the plant family like Apiaceae, second Cactaceae, and third Lemoniceae. Thus, the plant of this family undergoes autogamy type of self-pollination. Since a visible bending movement in the style occurs which places the stigma closer to the anther. However, facilitation of self-pollination within such flower that is autogamous flower mainly occurs when the anther and the stigma of the same flower rise simultaneously. Then comes the second type of self-pollination, that is getonogamy. As said, in getonogamy type of self-pollination, the transfer of pollen occurs from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the other flower that are present on the same plant. Now, this type of pollination can be said as a cross-pollination because the transfer of pollen occurs from one flower to the other flower. But since the transfer of pollen occurs within the same plant, Such a type of pollination can genetically considered as the self-pollination. Thus, functionally, it appears to be a cross-pollination. But since pollination occurs within the same plant, this type of pollination can be genetically defined as a type of self-pollination. Then comes the second type of pollination, that is cross-pollination. As said earlier, cross-pollination is a type of pollination or the process in which transfer of pollen occurs from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the flower, that is the stigma of the other flower that is situated on another plant. Such a type of pollination is known as cross-pollination, which is also known as allogamy. Now, the type of cross-pollination that occurs within plants can be either of same species or different species. So depending on this type, cross-pollination can also be of two types. That is, if the cross-pollination occurs within the plants of the same species, then such a type is known as xenogamy. And if the cross-pollination occurs within the plants of different species, then such a type of cross-pollination is known as hybridogamy. Such a type of pollination leads to the development of hybrid. On this basis, it can be concluded that such a type of cross-pollination or cross-pollination can occur only within unisexual flowers. That is, where both male and female gametes are located on different flowers. Moreover, due to this cross-pollination, cross-fertilization occurs, which has an advantage of genetic recombination. That is, genetic recombination occurs due to it. And it is because of this reason various hybrids can be obtained and a variety of flowers can occur. This figure depicts the pollination types. As it can be seen from the figure, the autogamy or the self-pollination occurs within the same flower of the same plant. On the contrary, the second type of self-pollination, that is the transfer of pollen from one flower to the other flower, occurs but within the same plant, which is known as geitonogamy. And the other type of pollination, that is cross-pollination, occurs between the flower of one plant to the flower of the other plant. Thus, this is all about the types of pollination. Now, after understanding the types of pollination, we will now get into the adaptations that are contrivances to these types of pollination. So, let us first of all begin with the adaptations that are contrivances to the self-pollination. There are mainly two adaptations. First is homogamy and second cleistogamy. So let us first of all begin with the homogamy. Homogamy is a situation or can be defined as a situation in which the anthers and the stigma mature at the same time. As a result of this, when the stigma becomes receptive to its surface, then at the same time the anthers of the flower shed their pollens. And thereby easy transfer of the pollen from anther to stigma can occur. Such a type of homogamy situation occurs in plants like Burmasi, whose scientific name is Catharanthus roseus. By this situation, a greater chance of self-pollination occurs, although it is not obligatory. That is, the chances of self-pollination in this situation becomes higher. That is, the changes that are involved in it becomes more. Then comes the second type of adaptation, that is cleistogamy. In this type of situation, that is this type of situation occurs in the flowers which remains closed. And such type of flowers are called cleistogamous flowers. Now, since the flowers remain closed, so the chances of self-pollination becomes more within the same flower. And thereby cross-fertilization is not at all possible in such flowers. This figure depicts the clistogamous flowers, that is Commelina, which exhibits the self-pollination because the flowers remain closed. Other examples of such clistogamous flowers include Viola and Oxalis. Now, as it can be seen from the figure, in Commelina, along with clistogamous flowers, there are also other flowers which is known as aerial flowers or chasmogamous flowers. Thus, in few plants, along with clistogamous flower occurs chasmogamous flower. Chasmogamous flowers are the flowers which normally open during the anthesis process. Normally means naturally opens during anthesis. That is when the transfer of anther occurs. Now, as it can be viewed, clistogamous flowers in Commelina are located underground in form of rhizomes or roots. On the contrary, the aerial flowers, that is chasmogamous flowers, are brightly colored and above the shoot system. And that is why, this is the reason that why clistogamous flowers are known to exhibit facultative character. This was all about the adaptations for self-pollination. Now, let us study about the adaptations that are contrivances to the cross-pollination. For cross-pollination, mainly four types of adaptations occur, which includes dichogamy, that is, such a type of situation generally occurs in bisexual flowers where male and female flowers mature at different times. The second type of adaptation that occurs in flowers is self-sterility. This type of adaptation generally occurs in the situation in which the landing of the pollen from anther to the stigma does not ensure any guarantee for a complete seed set or seed formation. The third type of situation is hercogamy. Such a type of situation also occurs only in bisexual flowers where a barrier occurs between the anther and stigma, due to which the transfer of pollen cannot occur within the same flower. And the fourth and final type of adaptation is heterostyle, in which the plants that possess flowers of styles having different lengths, due to which the chances of cross-pollination becomes higher. Thus this was all about the adaptations for both self and cross-pollination.